Hi, everyone, and welcome to Stand Up America and Crooked Media's joint Facebook Live tonight. Kill the filibuster, save democracy. Tonight, you'll be hearing from a wide variety of speakers. Shaniqua McClendon, the political director from Crooked Media, John Favreau, founder of Crooked Media, Sean Eldridge, founder of Stand Up America, um, uh, Brett Edkins, political director at Stand Up America, and myself, uh, Aubrey Langley, digital organizer. We'll hear a little bit about the For the People Act, as well as the filibuster and what you guys can all do to take action. Without further ado, let's get it started. I'm going to pass it off to Shaniqua. Shaniqua, are you here?
Yes, I am here. Thank you
Awesome. Okay, I'm out.
for the introduction. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. This quote on this slide is something that I've heard so often about Crooked, especially because I work with the podcast, but that's not the primary focus of my job. So when I reach out to people, they often say, "Oh, I didn't know you did anything other than podcast." So I'm going to tell you a little bit more about Crooked, but specifically our political work. And we can go to the next slide. So Crooked was founded in 2017, and I feel like John can speak to this more since it was his feeling, but was founded to help or to kind of provide a space where we could talk about politics in a more honest way. And what attracted me to Crooked is not just talking about politics, but also providing an opportunity for people to actually get engaged on the issues that we talk about on our shows and have an impact on them. And so our political team is focused on leveraging people into those opportunities to have an impact. We specifically, that work was happening before 2018, but in 2018, we officially launched Vote Save America, which was an initiative to help take back the House, but also to provide an opportunity for our audience to get plugged into the most impactful actions that they could take. And we saw a lot of great success in 2018. And last year in 2020, we continued our work through Vote Save America. And through that, we're able to raise, $48 million to help not only candidates, but grassroots organizations that were doing work to help not just get Democrats elected, but to advance a progressive agenda. And overall, our audience has just been tremendous. They do a ton of work, and I think the last three bullets on this slide really speak to how engaged and enthusiastic they are. 28,000 of them signed up to be poll workers. They made 18 million calls into 6 states and sent 7 million text messages, all of which helped us, win back the White House, and also, even though it's split evenly, take control of the Senate this past year.
Great. Thank you, Shaniqua. Hope you all can hear me okay. My name is Sean Eldridge, and I'm the founder and president of Stand Up America. And I'm very thrilled to be partnering tonight with Vote Save America. So thank you to Shaniqua. Thank you to John. So before we talk about what we're all here for, which is how we end the Jim Crow filibuster and pass the For the People Act, just want to say a few words about who we are and what we do. So Stand Up America is a progressive grassroots community of more than 2 million members across the country who are working to stand up to corruption, fight voter suppression, and work to build a more representative democracy. Some of you may know us from the Trump era. We started in 2016 as a Trump resistance organization. We were one of the loudest voices working to impeach Donald Trump twice, which was unfortunately necessary. We worked last year to help make sure that our elections were funded and that our democracy remained intact during the whole incredible Trump era. But now that Trump is out of the White House, we recognize that he is not the root cause of what's broken with our political system. He is just one symptom. So now at Stand Up America, with our 2 million members, we are working to build our democracy back better, to pass bold reforms at the local, state, and federal level that would help make sure that we never again get a Donald Trump in the White House, that we protect voting rights, and that we work to reduce the impact of big money in our elections. And our community is very loud and very energized. And thank you to all of us who have been part of Stand Up America and been part of this work. Our more than 2 million members have driven almost 1.5 million constituent calls to Congress and to state legislatures. Right now, we are driving calls not only to help end the filibuster and pass the For the People Act, but also to fight back against voter suppression bills in Texas and Arizona. We're working to expand voting rights right now in New York and Oregon. We also have an amazing volunteer community, which we call our organizing team. We have over 8,000 volunteers on Slack, which you're going to hear about in a little bit. Last year, our volunteers sent over 40 million text messages to more than 25 million Americans to help beat Trump, flip the Senate, and save our democracy. And we are continuing that work this year. So before I hand it off to Brett and Shaniqua, I just want to talk a little bit about the moment we're in. We are truly at a crossroads for American democracy. Right now, across the country, Republicans are moving to suppress the vote based on a lie, based on Trump's big lie about the 2020 voter election. And using that lie, Republicans have now introduced more than 360 bills in 47 legislatures to make it harder for Americans, largely Black and brown Americans, to register to vote and to cast their ballots. And that is incredibly harmful. It is an existential threat to the right to vote and to our democracy, and we need to fight back. Some of you may have seen what just happened in Georgia. In Georgia, we saw one of the worst voter suppression bills that we've seen in years, which not only made it harder for Georgians to vote early, to vote absentee, but as many of you may have seen, it made it illegal for Georgians to pass out water or food to voters who are waiting in long lines that shouldn't be so long anyway. And when you're at the point of making it illegal to give a voter water, you know you're getting pretty close to hitting rock bottom. But the good news is we are not helpless, far from it. As we sit at this crossroads for American democracy, as Republican lawmakers across the country try to make it more difficult for Americans to vote, Congress has the power right now to stop that voter suppression in its tracks, to not only protect voting rights, but expand voting rights by passing the For the People Act and ending the Jim Crow filibuster to do that. And we also have an opportunity not just to stop the bad things from happening, but to begin to restore faith in our political system, to reduce corruption, to get closer to building a truly multiracial representative democracy. And we are having this conversation tonight at a critical moment, because I don't think it is hyperbole to say that what Congress does or does not do in the next couple of months to protect our democracy will have an impact for decades to come, if not generations to come. So this is the moment. This is the moment to make your voice heard, whether you have 5 minutes or a few hours to get involved. Thank you for listening tonight and this conversation, because if we pass the For the People Act, we end the Jim Crow filibuster, we can not only stop these awful voter suppression bills, we can make our democracy stronger than ever. So I'm going to hand it off to our great political director, Brett Edkins, and to Shaniqua to tell us a bit more about where we are at in the fight to pass the For the People Act and why it's so important. Thank you.
Great. Thanks so much, Sean. So, hey everyone, my name is Brett Edkins. I'm the political director at Stand Up America. I'm going to take you through the For the People Act, explain what's in it and how it could help save our democracy. The For the People Act is a huge bill with a lot of provisions, so I'm only going to hit on a few highlights and I'll try to keep it short. The reforms in the bill generally fall into 3 policy buckets: 1, voting rights; 2, money in politics; and 3, ethics and anti-corruption. On voting rights, if we can go back to the voting rights slide, the provisions in the For the People Act are expansive, making the bill one of the most important voting rights proposals in history. Together, these reforms would boost voter registration, increase voter participation, and expand access to the polls nationwide. The reforms include nationwide automatic voter registration and same-day voter registration, nationwide online voter registration for states like Texas, where you can't register to vote online. The bill requires at least 2 weeks of early voting in every state and allows no excuse absentee voting, so everyone can vote by mail if they choose. The bill ends partisan gerrymandering. Let me just repeat that because that's a big deal. It ends gerrymandering for congressional districts. It also ends voter purges and felony disenfranchisement so that 5.2 million of our fellow citizens, disproportionately Black and Brown Americans, can vote now that they're back living in their communities with their families. It expands voting access for Americans with disabilities, prohibits spreading false information on voting or elections, and makes it a crime to deceive or intimidate voters. Finally, the bill requires paper-based voting systems nationwide and provides $1 billion in funding to make sure that states can do all of these things. In short, the For the People Act would expand voting access for eligible Americans by creating national voting standards, a minimum floor that all states have to reach. You know, we talked earlier about how state lawmakers have introduced over 360 bills this year to suppress our right to vote. Texas, Georgia, and Arizona have seen some of the worst of these, and some have already passed. A lot of these laws are surgically tailored to suppress the votes of Black and Brown Americans, or to make it harder for college students or people with disabilities to vote. The For the People Act would counteract many, if not most, of those laws by creating a level playing field across the country. And that was just the first bucket. The other buckets are shorter, I promise. Second, the For the People Act includes a whole host of reforms to end dark money in our politics. As you probably know, in 2010, the Supreme Court opened the floodgates to dark money in the Citizens United case, which overturned more than a century of precedent. Corporations can now spend unlimited funds on campaign ads. The For the People Act would require super PACs and 501c4 nonprofits to disclose their donors, so no more dark money. It would also make sure the Federal Elections Commission, which enforces our campaign finance laws, can function again. Right now, it's totally deadlocked. Finally, the bill would set up voluntary public financing of elections, which means that every dollar donated up to $200 to a campaign would be matched by $6, raised from penalties on corporations that have broken the law. A $50 donation would become a $350 donation, so that candidates can stop listening to corporations and wealthy people and start listening more to small donors, folks who can only give a few bucks to a campaign. Finally, our third bucket is ethics and anti-corruption. The For the People Act would strengthen ethics rules across our government. It would require the president, vice president, and candidates for those offices to disclose their tax returns. So if this bill had been law, we would have seen Trump's tax returns. The bill slows the revolving door between becoming a lobbyist, then a government official, and then a lobbyist again. It bans members of Congress from serving on for-profit corporate boards, which they can do right now, and requires a code of ethics for Supreme Court justices, which they don't have right now. The bill requires that presidents divest from financial holdings that are conflicts of interest, which we saw a lot of from Donald Trump. Finally, it would ban paid lobbying on behalf of foreign countries that are gross human rights violators. Okay, so that was a lot. Those are our three buckets. This bill is really big, and it would go a long way to improving and protecting our democracy with reforms to voting rights, money in politics, and ethics. Shaniqua, let me toss it back to you to tell us where the bill stands and how we're going to actually pass it.
Cool. Thanks, Brett. Hi again, everyone. So how do we get this bill passed? This should be a very simple thing to do. Where the bill stands right now, it was passed by the House last month, and it's been with the Senate. The Rules Committee in the Senate actually had a hearing last month, and at some point we'll mark this bill up, which is just kind of a committee review of the bill to make any edits that senators want to make, and then it'll head to the floor. So that is the simple process this should take. And it should be pretty, again, should see my heavy quotes around should. This should be really easy to do because it has tremendous support. 68% of Americans support the For the People Act. And it's not just Democrats. So across the board, a majority of independents and Republicans actually support this bill. And some of the most popular parts of the bill, which I think a lot of Republican elected officials would call, power grabs and partisan, that would actually just make our elections fairer and more transparent, are provisions that limit money in politics. Most Americans, I think you can talk to anyone from any political background, money has plays too much of a role in our politics right now. And as Brett said, that is what allows corporations to kind of dictate what our government is doing, even though we are the people who elect them and they should be listening to us. The other two provisions that have a majority of support, and these aren't the only ones, but three I wanted to highlight, are nonpartisan redistricting. That is another way that elected officials are able to kind of exert power and, pretty much circumvent the will of the people by drawing districts that are pretty hard to lose in and allow them to do whatever they want when they're elected to office because there's no real consequence that the voters can impose on them. And then finally, early voting. As we saw in elections across the country this past cycle, and especially in Georgia for the runoffs, being able to vote early just really gives more voters the opportunity to participate. If voters are only allowed to participate or vote on Tuesday, whatever election day that is, that's really restrictive for people who have, who are just not available, especially in states that don't have generous vote by mail laws, but people who are available on that day and time and, don't have other obligations, but allowing people to vote on more days provides greater access to the ballot, especially for people who are working jobs that don't provide them with as much flexibility or if they have family obligations. And then a lot of those long lines that we see, especially on election day, having early voting helps minimize those as well. So these are some of the really popular provisions. And so after, and apologies for the background noise on my end, but if all of these things are popular, so this bill should be pretty easy to pass through the Senate and then get to Joe Biden's desk. But unfortunately, just passing this bill is not as simple as we hope it is. There are a couple of roadblocks that we'll have to overcome to get this bill passed. And so for anyone who needs a refresher, go to the next slide. The first thing that we have to overcome is the filibuster. And so for anyone who needs a refresher on what the filibuster is, it's pretty much a procedural tool that the party in the minority can use to kill any bill. So unless the majority has at least 60 senators in the Senate, the minority just needs 41 senators to block a bill by not ending debate on the bill. And so if you can't end debate on the bill, you can't bring it up for a vote. And, as you can imagine, this allows what we're seeing now, which is a minority of senators to dictate what bills make it to a final vote on the Senate floor. And this means that as Republicans, as their party continues to shrink, that we still are going to see them have control over, the policies that dictate our country because they only need 41 senators to stand in the way of that. And so, we first saw the use of the filibuster be really bad during the Jim Crow era and civil rights movement, mainly to block legislation that would help African Americans. And while I was doing some research for this presentation, I found a really interesting article that said most of the times the filibuster was used, it was to block anti-lynching legislation or civil rights legislation. So it has a history of being used to pretty much promote and preserve racism in this country. And I would say it hardly protects the interest of minority people from minority groups who need protection, but actually protects the interest of a small group of senators who are looking to uphold the status quo. And so another obstacle that we have are two of our own Democratic senators. The filibuster is clearly an impediment, but we have the option of eliminating the filibuster. But to do that, we would need all Democratic senators to be on board with that. And we know for sure that Kyrsten Sinema, who represents Arizona, and Joe Manchin, who represents West Virginia, are both opposed to eliminating the filibuster, which means it's pretty much going to be nearly impossible for Joe Biden or Democrats in general to advance the progressive agenda that they've put forth. So, before we can even have a conversation of, one, how do we get this through the Senate? Okay, we need to eliminate the filibuster. Okay, we can't do that because we have 2 of our own senators that are opposed to it. We're going to have to push them to be in favor of getting rid of it. And to be fair to them, as much as you want to be fair to them, there may be other senators that we're just unaware of where they actually stand on it, because a lot of Democratic senators have put out pretty vague comments on where they stand on the bill. So how do we push these senators to figure out one, where they stand, and push them where we need them to be to get this bill passed? We're going to have to ramp up pressure nationwide, but also in key states. We really have to put pressure on any Democrat who has not offered a very clear statement on where they stand on eliminating the filibuster. And you can do that. This page is from votesaveamerica.com/forthepeople. And it basically goes through all of the most recent statements that Democratic senators have said about eliminating the filibuster or passing H.R. 1 and what actions they're willing to take to do it. And as you can see, there's a little phone next to the folks who have been ambiguous, and we need more clarity on and pushing them to do that. So yeah, that is part of what you can do, but I'm going to hand it over to Brett to go into more of the actions that you can take to have an impact on this.
Sure, thanks, Shaniqua. So all of you know now that the For the People Act is a sweeping democracy reform, and you know about the obstacles we're facing. And as you might have guessed, Republicans really don't want the For the People Act to pass. So even though the bill has already passed the House, it's going to be a heavy lift in the 50-50 Senate. We'll need every Democratic senator on board, plus Vice President Harris's tie-breaking vote, and we need to bypass the filibuster. So step 1 to passing the For the People Act is to create nationwide pressure on every senator so that they know their constituents care about the bill and expect them to pass it this year. Senators have a lot of competing priorities. They're busy. They need to know that H.R. 1 isn't just a bill favored by a few of their constituents, but by all of them. And we won't accept the filibuster as an excuse for not getting it done. So step 1 is pressuring all senators, no matter where you live. Step 2 is making extra efforts in critical states where senators are a bit more lukewarm on the bill or more hesitant to end the filibuster, like Shaniqua was saying. That includes Senators Manchin and Sinema, but it also includes senators in Pennsylvania, Maine, Montana, Delaware, New York, Nevada, New Hampshire, Michigan, and Virginia. So if you live in any one of those states, your voice is especially important. Our next speakers will talk to you all about a few ways you can take action, ramp up the pressure on your senators, and get this passed. They'll show you how you can easily call your senators, text voters in key states, and spread the word within your personal networks. So with that, thank you all so much. And let's toss it back over to Aubrey from Stand Up America. Aubrey? Thanks, Shaniqua.
Thanks, Brett. Hi, everyone. Aubrey here again. I'm a digital organizer here at Stand Up America. I've been doing organizing work for a while now. I did some organizing work for the Obama campaign way back when, as well as in Wisconsin, my home, my dear home of Wisconsin, with Organizing Together just this past year. And I see that my slide says I am a big fan of cheese. And even though I hate to feed a stereotype, I am a huge fan of cheese, and I hope I'm not the only one on this call who is. John, you wanna introduce yourself?
Hey, Aubrey.
Hi, John.
I too am a huge fan of cheese, so you are not alone in your love of cheese right now. I'm John Favreau, founder of Crooked Media, co-host of Pod Save America. I've got my Abolish the Filibuster t-shirt on. You guys can get that at the crooked.com store. We should probably send a few to Joe Manchin, Kyrsten Sinema, a couple senators, just so they get the message. So Aubrey, I have a few questions for you about organizing, if you don't mind.
No, I have a stretch of time actually, so go ahead.
Let's do it. So can you start by telling us a little bit about the work that Stand Up America has been doing around democracy reform, limiting the filibuster, HR1, all that good stuff this year?
Yeah, so John, what haven't we done? We hit the ground running this year, like truly. We've done a fair amount of work to combat anti-voter legislation at the state level in certain states. So we're like mobilizing folks to push back against bills that would make it more difficult to vote. You know, as something like requiring a printout of your driver's license or something, and you have to add that to your mail-in ballot. As well as pushing people to support pro-democracy bills, like what's going on in Washington. On the national level, we've been reaching out to folks and filling them in on what the For the People Act is all about, and getting them to not only contact their senators about it, but to also demand that they not let the filibuster stand in the way of its passage. We made reaching out to your senator actually really easy. Next slide if that's there. It's like calling your senator and everything requires using a phone. I know phones haven't changed much since your grandma's day, but it is no less glamorous as that GIF on the right, and it is just as important as it was then. If you've got a second, I can actually demo a call for you right now. Like I said,
let's do it. Let's hear.
like I said, it's super duper easy. So all you're gonna do, next slide. Oh man. Give me 1 second. So things that we're doing, you're gonna make a call and you're gonna hear a recording. It's gonna explain that we have two objectives when we make our calls. The first one is to, of course, show up and shore up support for the People Act. And then our second objective is to demand that they not let the filibuster stand in the way. We can't allow our senators to hide behind a racist Senate loophole in order to defend this and prevent change. So the choice for them is always save our democracy or uphold a racist Senate loophole. Next slide. So you can connect to us by texting the word change. We're trying to make a change in democracy. So we pick change to 21333 to call your senator. Like I said, you'll hear a short recording that'll explain what we're doing. And then I've already been connected to Senator Baldwin's office, but you're just gonna, let's see if she picks up. All right, so I've made it to a voicemail, and you're just gonna leave a message if you reach a voicemail, leaving your name, where you're from, and what you're calling about. So Tammy has a longer voicemail.
Can we all say hi to Tammy at once?
I'm blessed to have like both the worst and the best senator.
You really do, yeah.
It's amazing.
You have America's dumbest senator and Ron
Exactly.
Johnson, and also one of the very, very best.
Hi, my name is Aubrey Langley. I'm calling from Kenosha County, and I would just like to encourage Senator Baldwin to not only support passage of the For the People Act, but to also not let the filibuster stand in the way of its passage. Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Boom, 30 seconds, done.
It's that easy, people. It's that easy.
That code is active right now. You guys can all whip out your phones and make that call right after this call. I don't want you guys jumping off while me and John are talking.
So you have been you were an organizer in Wisconsin in 2020, so that is as tough a fight as anyone can imagine. Very, very close, tough state. You guys pulled it out. Some people are probably thinking, none of this matters if we don't move Joe Manchin. Can you talk about why you believe that organizing can make a difference here, because we always get stuck in this like, well, we're all just waiting to see what Joe Manchin has to say, and so shouldn't we just sort of step back and wait?
Mm. So first off, I just need to shout out Wisconsin again. Obligated.
You deserve
Shout
it.
out 262, my home, Kenosha. But on the subject of organizing, I firmly believe that everything that we have is a result of organizing that people have done. And that just because someone starts out on one side of an issue doesn't mean that they're incapable of eventually moving to our side of an issue.
Yeah.
Uh, the key to making that change in a person is organizing. You know, if you're not organizing, you're not making yourself known, you're not making yourself heard, and you're not signaling to other people who think like you do, who are supportive or potentially supportive of what you're fighting for, that they're not alone, that there are people out there pushing for this mutual interest, right? Organizing is the way that we as a citizenry kind of make our wants and demands heard by the people that we've chosen to represent our interests in government. Um, I guess if we're focusing on Joe Manchin, uh, he didn't elect himself to be the senator of West Virginia. You know, people did. So he can say what he wants about the filibuster and about like what he thinks and where he's going to vote. But with organizing, through organizing, eventually, you know, he'll be put into a position where he'll be forced to either listen to the voices of the people who put him in his position and act based on their interests, or he'll wind up getting replaced by someone who will, or all of us in states outside of West Virginia will organize to an extent we can where we can make the government, the Senate, able to function around him. Um, you know, we're not helpless, is what I'm saying.
No, I think it's such an important point. We should never let go of the belief that everyone is persuadable somehow, if you really work hard to make the argument. And I think that starts with, putting pressure, building public support across the country. I think it moves on to, building public support among all the other Democratic senators. And if Joe Manchin's the last one, then Joe Manchin's the last one. But don't for a second think that he is not persuaded, or at least he does not feel the public pressure if it builds on this issue. And if he hears a chorus of voices telling him every day that HR 1 and For the People Act is, absolutely essential to protect this democracy.
Exactly. We have
Um,
when it. Oh no.
Go ahead.
Okay. Just like, when it comes to our organizing team, right? We have texts going out all the time to folks across the country. We're always advocating for like good legislation and opposing bad bills. Also, it's just like a really fun place to be. If I'm being totally honest, it's just a fun place to be online. You get to do the good work of being an active citizen while also like getting to know people from all over. Um, Next slide. For anybody that's looking to get involved, it's super easy. Again, we've cut all the red tape, to use a Washington term, between getting you on the couch to into a text bank. All you have to do is text the word organizing, that's our magic word, to 21333, and then you'll be texting with us in no time.
Amazing. And texting is also great if you are one of those people who is really nervous about talking to someone on the phone. You can text.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. My heart like races when I have to like call the doctor and like set up an appointment. So
That's why you moved to texting. So we're telling everyone to call their senators to find out where they stand on eliminating the filibuster and pass the For the People Act. If you're someone who's already done that, or if your senator already supports both HR 1 and eliminating the filibuster, what are some of the other ways that people can take action?
yeah. So first off, if you've already done that and your senator's like, I'm supportive of this, one, thank you. And then two, make sure that you thank them. If you didn't thank them last time, call them again and then thank them. But the next big thing that you can do is to spread awareness. I know it's like 2021 and everyone's like, oh, that means talk about it on social media. but it's so much more than that. Yes, you want to flood your friends' feeds with all this educational content, uh, but you can also spread the word in your daily life, in your person-to-person kind of life. We've got a nice little list here that's semi-serious, semi-jokey, but you can spread some info in your group chat. You see a stranger on the bus, maybe talk to them about it. You go to a morning workout group, maybe talk to them. In line at the grocery store, hit them up as well. Like this information like benefits everybody, and each person that we touch and like get to activate is another person that will take an action that will eventually lead to the change that we're looking for. I personally can vouch for this process. I don't know if any of my friends are in the chat right now, but I am that friend. I'm the friend that is blowing up their phones and timelines all about election stuff, especially on election days, encouraging people to request your absentee ballot, make a plan to vote. Don't be afraid to be that friend, right? This is something important enough to you, not you, John. I'm talking to the crowd, but this is something important enough to you to take time out of your day to come learn about. So it's definitely something important enough for you to bring up to at least one of your friends or family members. Everybody knows somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody, and it's going to take all of us mobilizing each other to get this bill passed. If you want to learn more, it's always votesaveamerica.com/for-the-people. I know people reach out to other people. Your friends have questions, and you're like, I don't know the answer to that question. VoteSaveAmerica.com for the people. All the resources you need are right there. That is a plug, but also, John, do you have something to say?
I was just going to say that it's a fantastic icebreaker for a first date. I mean, you start talking about the filibuster on a first date, and you're golden. That's
I have never heard of it failing.
that is an honest answer. I too have never heard that failing. So I do think we have time for a few questions from the audience. Let's see. I'm going to just read them here from our chat. Is that I guess that's what we should do. Okay. Question from the comments. What do we know about the types of voters who are A, aware of the filibuster issue, and B, following closely and willing to mobilize to kill it? I'm wondering if there are certain segments or demographics where we really need to do more work, or who's easiest to bring on board.
That is a tough question. But I also think, okay, so I think when we try and I guess focus on a certain type of voter, we kind of miss the purpose of organizing, right? There's an aspect to it that is like activism, but then also like persuasion. So you can't go out and pick people or like look for people that are meeting both of these criterion, right? Aware of the filibuster and following closely and willing to mobilize to kill it. I think it's up to us to reach out to people and make them aware of the filibuster issue, contextualize things. Your friends, your family, what's important to them. If they're really for the People Act, say we can't have that because of the filibuster. Really want DC statehood, can't have that because of the filibuster. Single payer healthcare, can't have that because of the filibuster, maybe. But it's up to us to really reach these people, educate them, and mobilize them that way. I'm not entirely sure if that answers that person's question.
No, the only extra thing I thought of was I do think from all the polling that I've looked at, there's a big chunk of people that don't know what the filibuster is. They aren't familiar with it. But when you talk to them about what's in the For the People Act, they are overwhelmingly supportive in the bipartisan fashion. And like you were saying, Aubrey, like you could start talking to them both about the For the People Act, about all the other issues where the filibuster stands in the way of the progress. People might not be familiar with a very specific Senate rule, but they do believe in most of the things we're trying to do, especially these democracy reforms that are embedded in the For the People Act. And so I think you have to talk about, I think the easier thing to do is to rally people around passing HR 1, because that's easier to understand. And then you talk about the filibuster as an obstacle in the way, as everyone has done here.
Another question.
Go for it.
Someone says, "Help! I live in Utah." Oh, you can move. Is it worth sending Romney a message?
Why not, right?
Yeah, exactly.
He's already said that he does not like the bill. But he has, look, part of the holdup here is Joe Manchin said, I want to do a bipartisan elections bill. And is there a bipartisan For the People Act to be had? Almost certainly not. But if Joe Manchin wants to go through the motions and Mitt Romney is one of those potential 10 senators that he thinks he could get on board, then Mitt Romney should be made to tell us what he's willing to do for voting reforms and what he's willing to do for election reforms. And if enough people call Mitt Romney and tell him this is what we believe in, could it make a difference? It's worth trying.
Yeah, that's like, I second that completely. It's calling a senator that like Mitt Romney, who's already like, oh, I don't like this. Calling them may not change how they vote on this particular issue, but it is, if it happens enough, it puts a lot of people on notice. You know, it tells the senator, like, all these people are watching me. You know, I'm saying no a lot, but yeah, there's like, pressure is pressure either way, and you can always build on that pressure as we progress. So yes, it's worth making a call to Mitt Romney, as John already said. You want to pick another one, John?
Sure. Let's see. What do we do if Manchin and the rest never budge? Is For the People Act dead? Yeah, if they never budge. I mean, that's why we're doing this. That's why we got to keep it up. You know, I mean, look, I think the good news on For the People Act is it is a bill that has 49 out of 50 co-sponsors in the Senate among Democrats. Joe Manchin is the only one that has not co-sponsored it. He did write an op-ed talking about all the different things that he likes about the bill, which are a few of the big provisions. So you do have Joe Manchin wanting to get something done, but I think it's a different frame, this question. The way that the bill dies is if Joe Manchin and Kirsten Sinema don't really feel pressure to do anything about it. If they don't hear a lot of noise, if everyone's talking about other news, if everyone's talking about the infrastructure bill, they're talking about everything else, and they're not hearing every single day from their constituents, in the news, on the streets, outside their offices, in town halls, that one of the most important things we can do for this democracy is to pass this bill, because if we don't, there is a tide of voter suppression legislation sweeping the country. And we just had a party whose presidential candidate literally tried to steal the last election. And if we do not do this, then the next election is absolutely in jeopardy, and they might be able to steal that one. If they don't keep hearing this, that's how the bill ends. And so the only way that the best chance we have to pass this thing and to make sure they know what the stakes are, is to keep our voices heard and to keep calling and keep texting and keep doing everything we can to make noise about it.
I have nothing to add to that. That was so thorough. That was great. It's like, I have nothing to add. I think we have time for like 2 more questions. So the next one is, okay, yeah, this is a good one for you, John. Why can't the For the People Act be in the infrastructure bill? Like, it is infrastructure. It's democracy infrastructure.
Look, there is nothing I like more than defining everything as infrastructure. I think the challenge is the only things that can be in these reconciliation bills, which is what the infrastructure bill is going to be and what the American Rescue Plan was, Reconciliation is a Senate process that only requires 51 votes and not 60, but anything in a reconciliation bill has to affect the federal budget, which is why you get spending items in a reconciliation bill, and anything that changes the law but doesn't change government spending, it doesn't have an effect on the budget, has to be passed through what's called regular order, which means you need 60 votes, which again is why we have to get rid of the filibuster. Basically, all roads lead back to doing something about the awful Jim Crow filibuster.
Like the root of all evil is the filibuster. It's not, well, money and
It's
filibuster.
up there. It's up there.
Yeah, it's one of them.
All right, I think we have time for one more question. Do we know what the timeline is for passing HR 1, aka how long do we have before it's HR 1 or we're fucked?
Let's see. Well, I mean, I'm not like on the hill. I'm not like super plugged in to like exact dates or anything, but
Look at you, man.
it's like, but I think, but it's this year. Like, that's it. I would say is if we don't get HR 1 through like this year, and we full steam ahead into like election season 2022, and we're using poorly drawn maps or like unfair maps and everything in these elections, and there's just unlimited dark money funding elections, and I guess the power dynamic kind of like shifts, like it's over. If we lose a seat in the Senate, and we have, I don't really recall exactly how slim our margin is in the House, but if we lose a seat in the Senate and lose 2, 3, 4 seats in the House, like it's done. There won't be any HR 1. We won't be able to talk about that anymore. It'll just, it'll be a dark day.
And I will just say another timeline too. So the bill gets marked up on, I think, May 11th in the Senate Rules Committee. And but the reason it needs to get passed so urgently is because a huge provision in the bill, maybe one of the most important provisions in the bill, is the provision that would end partisan gerrymandering. And they're going to start drawing the congressional map soon enough. Redistricting is going to happen probably this summer. And so this bill needs to pass before Republicans start drawing all their maps and packing all their members in districts that they can win. So we need to get this done before redistricting starts if we really want it to have an impact. So certainly, like you said, probably by the end of the year, but I think this is, it's going to get marked up in May, and then I think we're going to have a vote on the Senate floor soon after that. And this thing, it needs to get moving.
Agreed. The sooner the better. I like your deadline much better than mine. Mine was very vague. I like that you're like, yeah, no, we have a month. You have a month to do this. So cool. That is it for questions. Thank you so much, John, for answering
all
the questions.
Appreciate it.
Just like, come back anytime. It's like, but I'm gonna ask Shaniqua to come back, and we're just gonna give you a quick overview of what we all covered. Quick recap. That's what that's called, not an overview.
Thank you, Aubrey. This has been a great conversation, and I hope everyone has taken away the important things that we want you all to take away, which is the For the People Act is very important. As was mentioned during the conversation that John and Aubrey were just having, it's going to have an impact on the elections that are happening next year. And if we don't pass it, Republicans are passing a bunch of crazy bills at the state level, and some of those bills would allow them to just simply overturn elections. So we have to get this bill passed to make sure that we're, not in a position that voters are electing the people that they want and being told, no, you can't have those folks represent you. And a big part of how we get this bill passed is putting pressure on our Democratic senators. We have a one-person majority in the Senate with Kamala Harris, and there's, we need every Democratic senator on board to make sure that we can pass this bill. We know that Kirsten Sinema and Joe Manchin are not on board with eliminating the filibuster yet, and it's literally the only way that we can pass this legislation. There are no Republicans who are going to support this bill, despite whatever they've said about, there are things I like. And I think we'll be able to see that after the bill is marked up, when I assume no Republicans will vote that bill out of committee. So again, as was mentioned several times, we would love all of you to take action. Head over to votesaveamerica.com/forthepeople. Find out where your senator stands on the bill. And if they need some nudging, give them a call. But thank you so much to everyone for being here. And we hope that you'll join us in this effort and we can all see the For the People Act pass soon.